Right, so the country is crying out for change, so says Keir Starmer as he unveils a Tony Blair style pledge card that people can carry around with them just to remind themselves what he stands for. At this particular snapshot in time, at any rate, it probably won't last. And indeed have a tick chart of the lies he told in exchange for your vote, as he ends up breaking every single one of them, as he has broken every promise, pledge, vow, oath, guarantee, declaration, or list thereof on previous occasions. Starmer, since becoming leader, has not stuck by a single thing he has ever said, pretty much. He stood on 10 pledges to become Labour leader, let us never let him forget, pretending he was continuity Corbyn, and instead has morphed into cardboard Tony Blair. Now having formally announced candidacy selections for Corbyn's replacement in Islington North, he's put the final nail in the coffin that he is in any way an honest or trustworthy individual. So in which case, when he's made and binned so many policy positions before, his 6 fixes for Britain strikes me as an unfortunate choice of words, because he's fixed the Labour Party for the establishment and for the right wing, fixed it so it is now Tory Lite and anything but an alternative to the current Tory government, and will do exactly the same thing to the country they have if given the chance. Right, so speech this morning from Keir Starmer. Preaching to the faithful, we had the person who is actually in charge, Rachel Reeves, do a turn at the podium before he came on, bleating about being a banker, not playing fast and loose with the finances, which he's not actually, it seems, prepared to spend on much at anything at all. Small state Tory politics, but what else do you expect by someone who goes to George Osborne for advice on how to be the Chancellor? Others spoke too before Starmer eventually came to say his piece, pushing his 6 fixes, which are frankly a sick joke, not just because of how mundane, how Tory, and how tone-deaf to the needs of the country they actually are, but as much for what Starmer clearly isn't prioritising instead of them. You have to bear in mind, if these are the 6 things going on the flashcards, the 6 key items that are going to define Labour going into the next general election, then these are the things foremost in Starmer's mind right now that he believes will win him the election, and looking at them, he's still frankly banking on not being Rishi Sunak to deliver him into number 10, because functionally, a lot of what he's taken is stuff that the Tories have been saying. There's no implication he's listening to ordinary people, what matters in their lives, our lives, though there's a veneer of trying to imply that in a couple. Though actually, when you think about them a little bit more deeply, as I certainly have here, there's really nothing there of any material matter. For one thing, none of these are actually policies. Of course they aren't. There's zero detail to any of them. These are aspirations, things he wants to achieve, goals, and it's all very safe ground too. Anything remotely controversial, anything the Tories or other detractors might pick on him over, they don't get a look in. So let's look at these 6 fixes. You probably won't be surprised to know, if you watch regularly, I will have found issues with them. But that really is because Starmer never fails to let people down when they need somebody who's going to actually champion something actually different, champion change, something transformative and positive that will make people's lives better, not to mention the running of this country. The first fix is to deliver economic stability. That's it, economic stability. Starting as vaguely as he ever does, really. What exactly does that tell us then? Well, the economy is on the floor right now. That's not news. We're just dragging ourselves out of a recession as it happens. Growth was minimal before that. The Tories have always got their excuses for that. It was COVID, it was the pandemic, it was austerity. And that's been the way it has been for years, where the Tories have starved back the country actually of investment, which generate economic returns. Starmer's fix is to maintain that stability, so he's saying. That's quite the aspiration, isn't it? To just keep us out of recession. Quite the high bar. Functionally, it is a promise to not rock the boat, though, not do anything radical. Basically, promising to not crash the economy, which, well, that's quite a target, isn't it? Combine that with all the stuff Rachel Reeves has actually ruled out because of her stupid fiscal rules, which are meaningless as well. So forget about any real changes to levels of government spending and investment again. We're promising more of the same on the economy, they say, just without the mistrust bit in the middle, without that screw up. That's all this fix amounts to. The second one is to cut NHS waiting times. Now, this is probably the one of all of these fixes that has anything about them is actually something decent. Let's give him some props for once. Let's give Labour some props. Waiting times must be cut. Sure, great, fine. Nobody disagrees with that, do they? The knock-on effect to the economy, for one, is significant. People waiting for operations or treatment for various conditions, unable to be economically active because of their health hold-ups. And of course, aside from the whole economic picture, people's lives are actually at stake too. So if Starmer can get waiting lists down, then great, but how? 40,000 new appointments a week, he promises. But no information on how fast that will happen. He was asked that by the press afterwards. How quickly is this going to happen then? As fast as possible. Well, that's really informative, isn't it? How is he going to do this? Well, we know where Labour are saying funding for this is coming from. They're going to use the money raised from non-dom and tax avoidance crackdowns that Rachel Reeves has pledged. That is basically seemingly paying for everything Labour is promising, demonstrating just how little that will be and how little intention Reeves has from deviating from Tory-style levels of investment. But what will this money be spent on exactly, precisely, that will get the waiting list down, that will create all these new appointments each week? Well, we need staff from overseas immediately, because that's the only way this gets fixed fast. We need people already trained back here working. We've lost too many staff, along with the investment in what they actually need. The problem is, with West Streeting waiting in the wings, desperate to roll out more private provision, my fear is that all of this cash is going to go into private health coffers for them to try and deliver on this. And they simply won't be able to, because there simply isn't the capacity in the private health industry. Cash is one thing. What Labour do with the cash they raise from non-doms and tax dodgers is quite another. And I fear they're going to spend it stupidly. Third fix, well, this is red meat for the Faragists, isn't it? Launch a brand new border force called Border Security Command. This is effectively throwing Border Force under the bus, really, isn't it? Because surely this is what they do already, isn't it? There's a very Thunderbirds-sounding theme to this one, isn't it? Border Force Command. Well, Border Security Command, even. This already exists to all intents and purposes, though. We already have Border Force. Just renaming it and changing their remit a little bit, tinkering, perhaps, isn't going to fix anything, especially when the fix in regards to our borders is being dictated by hard-right narratives over stopping the boats. Rishi Sunak staked his premiership on this more than anything else, and he's failed completely, hasn't he? Because the only way you stop the boats is to make a new legal route for asylum, so nobody needs the boats anymore. Nobody needs the people traffickers. People can safely, without risking their lives, make their asylum claims and be judged on the merits of them. Combine that with a new returns policy we could negotiate with the EU, which doesn't require rejoining them to have that, and we don't even need to home all successful asylum seeker applicants here. That is the humane thing to do. That's the common sense thing to do. Absolutely no mention of that here, though. Instead, in his actual speech, Starmer decided to bleat about being director of public prosecutions again. Honestly, the speech really could have been a drinking game, folks. We know all the sound bites. We know exactly what he said. He had them all. He sang them all. He said them all. Taking down such gangs, he said, when he was at the CPS as DPP. But you can't get them all. That's been shown time and time again. The French, when they've been paid millions of foreign money to try and get them all, they couldn't get them all. Everything that our government, the Tories, have tried has failed utterly. You cannot get them all. Not if you're going to play this game. There will always be more traffickers springing up. They will always be putting their boats into the sea at different points along the French coastline to land up on the British coastline. They don't care if these people they put in the boats actually get to our coast in the end, as long as they get the money before they get in the boats. Trying to act all tough on this, when Starmer basically sounds like David Beckham on helium at the best of times, just made what he actually said sound all the more ridiculous. But then there is actually no mention, when you think about it, when you come back to the fix itself, of stopping the boats at all. So this whole Border Security Command is just a means to an undefined end, in which case we can surmise the end, as I've done here. It's all about stopping the boats. But Starmer avoids actually saying it on the card. What is also avoided is how exactly this new Border Security Command will be any different to what we already have in Border Force. As Starmer said, they might have some new powers, but that was vague as well. And how will they be more successful when this is basically just carrying on from where the Tories leave off? There's no real difference in how they're approaching this issue, in how both party leaderships are approaching the issue of migrant boats. Starmer loves talking about sticking plaster politics, accusing the Tories of sticking plaster solutions. Well, that is blatantly what this fix is as well, because it clearly isn't actually fixing anything at all. And we know, because nothing is actually changing, that it will fail, just as everything the Tories have tried before has. The fourth fix is setting up Great British Energy, a nationalised energy provider. But we already know about this. This is not a new announcement. But this will not be a direct supplier to the public. It will instead be a generator and distributor to established and very much privatised energy providers, the very same ones that have been scalping us in recent years. By providing energy at a cheaper price to these companies, Starmer is thinking energy bills will drop for all of us as we go. It is classic Thatcherite nonsense 101. This is literally trickle-down economics. It's never worked. It won't work here. The energy providers will pocket extra profit and tell Keir Starmer, thank you very much. There are no guarantees at all this will benefit us with lower bills because of how it is being designed, and when it fails, for I'm certain it will, Blue Labour, as this lot is, will say, well, we tried nationalisation, look at our GB energy, and as we always said, it never works. But it isn't really nationalisation for us. It's nationalisation for the energy companies instead, and for as long as it lasts, it'll work wonderfully for them. The fifth fix is to crack down on antisocial behaviour. Okay, so that's something to crack down on, is it? This fix isn't a fix, it's pig ignorance, when antisocial behaviour is dealt with by addressing the underlying causes of it. What opportunities are there for young people? What happened to all of our youth clubs, for example? Instead of addressing questions like that, Starmer talked to people afraid to open their front doors or go out at night. Starmer in his speech has framed this as a safety issue rather than a societal and political failure of young people. More police, special officers on the streets, completely missing the point. Rather than having been failed and recognising that, Starmer is of the view that such young people that engage in this, for whatever reason, they have no other aspirations in life, they have no opportunities in life, should just be criminalised instead. This isn't a fix at all. It's another failure, and he's actually going to make it a bigger one. And the sixth and final fix is to recruit 6,500 new teachers, paid for by removing the tax breaks on private schools. Nobody can argue about removing those tax breaks. That's brilliant. That money raised implies more teachers, though. Yet the fix itself, watch the wording, just says 6,500 new teachers. It doesn't say 6,500 additional teachers. Teaching has become an oppressive career. So many are leaving that vocation all the time. This isn't about 6,500 more, just 6,500 new teachers. So this is really addressing the issue. The language is a fudge, isn't it really? Not a fix. And we may not have any more teachers at the end of the day to read into it. But look at what didn't make the grade. It's as much something to fixate on as what he did pledge to fix. Poverty at all levels and all age groups, cost of living crisis, living standards, disability rights, workers' rights relegated to not being a pledge card priority. Climate change and the environment, green investment. Well, Keir Starmer did say he hates the tree huggers, didn't he? He's avoided foreign policy entirely, which is especially pertinent to a lot of people right now, given what is going on in Gaza. Starmer's pro-Zionist leanings well known, and they've caused him to have an absolute hammering in local elections, and people are absolutely disgusted with the Labour Party over that. There was nothing on housing or childcare. He avoided mentioning the renationalisation of the railways. And right now, with sewage outflows all over the country, an outbreak of cryptosporidium in schools, for crying out loud, in Devon, ignoring water renationalisation is a massive failure too. He's binned the abolition of tuition fees. He's binned higher taxes for the top 5% of earners. He's binned a wealth tax. He's binned benefits reform and scrubbing universal credit. He's keeping the cruel two-child benefit cap. He's thrown out freedom of movement. He's talked about wind farms, but he also refuses to roll back new oil and gas licenses in the North Sea that Sunak has granted. There was nothing on ecological breakdown. My God, you can go on and on and on. All of these are less important by omission or have just been ditched. Which ones of those would you happen to prioritise? This was a cowardly safe speech containing very little, a pledge card containing vague details to avoid criticism, given they are so open to interpretation, though that failed because, well, I wrote this video, didn't I? This is a nervous Labour Party, though. The polling figures that they have got its massive 20-point lead are garbage. The local election extrapolations that have been done by various psephologists have proven that, have demonstrated that. They have a lot of challengers around the country from the Green Party and from independents, and they're losing ground where they shouldn't be, having been in opposition for so many years. But that is because of Keir Starmer himself more than anything else. He is electoral kryptonite in so many ways, and the Labour Party are right to be worried. They deserve nothing less, and they sure as hell don't deserve to be elected to power with a majority when they are offering so little. And you can check out this video recommendation here, which will explain a little bit more about why Labour's polling isn't really as great as many pollsters appear to be saying it is, and why Labour are rightfully nervous. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.